This is the Palin Update on Saranet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
He needs to call in those around him, kind of broaden his inner circle of confidants, because right now it sounds like the inner circle that he has are some Chicago thugs.
And while Obama and friends continue to stumble and bumble along, Americans are standing up to far-left policies. The endorsements are coming as well. Governor Palin backing candidates. The most coveted endorsement out there is one from Palin. We'll look at the hopefuls that are now Palin-powered. Tuesday is primary day in Illinois. We'll talk with Chris Balkema, who's running for Congress in the 11th District in the GOP primary. A brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimpson is on the way. And just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. Now we head to the belly of the beast, the Chicagoland area, and I'm always impressed with common sense candidates who run in an area that Obama thinks he owns and Rahm Emanuel thinks he owns, but there are a lot of good people in Illinois, and Chris Balkema is certainly one of them. He's running for Congress in the 11th District. Chris Balkema, how are you, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me.
You're a 20-year veteran of Caterpillar. You serve on the Grundy County Board, and you've been a school board member. Why a congressional run, and what do you bring to the people in your district?
Yeah, I've worked in the district for the last 10 years and been at Caterpillar. At the end of the day, the folks in District 11 want to go to their kids' soccer games, have a job, be able to raise their kids, kind of reaping the benefits of the American dream, and independent, Democrat, Republican, that right now that dream is unattainable for a lot of folks. I want to take my business experience as well as my local school board and county board experience, and I really got the courage to go drive solutions in ways that others before me have not.
What's it like being in Illinois when so many associate Obama and far-left policies with you, but that is not actually the case?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the folks that works for a moving company confided in me that he sees a whole lot of folks moving out, not very many folks moving in. The Obama agenda is become so extreme that the vast majority of Democrats, as well as independents, and clearly Republicans, don't align with it. And so I would say that there's a whole lot more of us, independent, American-minded folks than there is of them, which is the folks that are really taking the country down a socialistic path. When Margaret Thatcher unfortunately passed away recently, I was reminded of my favorite quote from her, which is, the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money, and we're there. And the people understand that. While Republicans have differing views from a social perspective, most people get it from a pluses and minuses of a budget. And since 2008, when many households have had to cut up a credit card here and there to balance their budget, they do not understand why our government at the federal level can't do the same thing.
Yeah, Governor Palin, a huge supporter and fan, if you will, of Margaret Thatcher, and that quote definitely sums things up very simply, but in a very serious topic. Now, living in Illinois, I can understand why one of your top priorities is ethics reform at every level of government, right? Because you've seen what happens without it.
Yes, it's interesting. I was on a high school board. That's all I was ever going to do. I was back in '09 and made some good headway from a property tax reduction. And some folks said, Chris, you got to run for Grundy County Board. That's a county that's south of Chicago by about 80 miles. I said, no, thanks. I'm quite happy where I'm at. They said, well, did you know that they pay themselves, the board members, $1 a mile to go to meetings, and they have a Cadillac health care plan, and they work probably 5 hours a week? So let me just tell you a 30-second story. I said I didn't know that. I was HR manager at the time at Caterpillar. I checked it out. It was true. Huge, wonderful health care plan. Couldn't touch it in the private industry, yet the board members had given that to themselves on the back of the taxpayers. So they got me fired up, and I ran. And it was an 8-month battle, and I said I was going to repeal it, and we started down that path. I had a Republican and a Democrat, one of each, come to me along the way and say, Chris, it looks like you've got the bills or the votes to get this through the bills in the committee. At least grandfather those of us that are currently on the board. Let us keep the benefit, perk, and then we'll exclude the new people with your new law. I said, come on, we said we're going to do this. We're doing it all the way. So I thought it'd be a tough vote. At the end of the day, 8 months later, the final vote with all the cameras and the media present and the cameras rolling, the final vote was 18-0 to repeal that health care for board members. Nobody had the courage to stand there and say, yes, I'm entitled to that when they were going to be exposed. What that showed me is, from an ethical perspective, if we can get that done in little old Grundy County, $17 million budget, the only difference between that and the federal government is the size of the issue, but it takes the same amount of courage to stand strong and get it done.
Amazing, isn't it? Because the cameras were on, like you said, and we see this in Washington now, the hypocrisy when Obama ran, said this would be such a transparent administration, and yet everything's backroom dealings. You went more the Palin route. She cut so much as governor of Alaska as soon as she was elected, and that is great to see. And that's how they get away with this stuff a lot of the times, right? Because people don't even know it's happening. They either don't say a word, or even when they do have to put a release out on something that they do have to talk about, they do it on Saturday night at 11 p.m. or something along those lines. So it's that kind of nonsense people are sick of.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I've been on the county board now for 2 terms. I'm finishing my 2nd term, and I've got my cell phone number on the website. If you go to Grundy, GRUNDYCO.org, I've got my cell phone number out there. I want to be accessible to the people, and what I've found is, Republican, Democrat, Independent, if you connect with the people and you explain every vote, common sense prevails, and most folks respect that. And so what we need to do at the federal level is shine the light far and wide, expose the agendas, and the vast majority of Americans will rally around you. So I'd like to pass some 5 or 10-page bills as opposed to some 2,000-page bills through committee, with some laser focus on issues that if those things fail and people vote them down, boy, we wait till the next round of elections, we'll be able to shine the spotlight on those that are really against what the country has stood for the last 237 years. So
you mean actual legislation that Nancy Pelosi could actually read before they vote on it?
Yeah, 5 pages I bet we could get through.
Now, have you noticed, the president and many in Congress, they act as if our Constitution's a suggestion at best.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is there's so many people that have fought for and died for this country. This 237-year-old quote-unquote experiment we're so young as a nation compared to many nations. Yet, 350 million of us compared to 7 billion of us, and we're still so highly sought after as a nation. And for folks on the left and folks that want to play with the Constitution and begin to try and change it, they're going to see an uprising from America that they haven't seen. And that brings me great joy to know that America is the most generous nation on the face of the earth, but yet we're still the most passionate nation on the face of the earth. And the way we saw folks rally around the existing president, happened to be a Republican after 9/11, I think is the same amount of rallying that we're going to see if the Obama and the folks continue to issue these daily executive orders that are chipping away at the very foundation of the country.
People across Illinois and really all over the country, they're trying to make ends meet. Meantime, in D.C., they don't have a budget to follow. They spend wildly. What can be done there?
Yeah, the days of printing more money to pay our bills are really gone. We're north of 17 trillion as a debt. Our entire GDP, the entire gross domestic product of the nation, is less than that. We understand that we absolutely are not going to get this done by printing, quantitative easing, printing more money, buying more, issuing more T-bills, and selling our souls to other nations, and people get that. So we have no further to look than Greece or Cyprus to see when a currency becomes so devalued that it's insignificant, and we as the United States will start to lose our ability to compete in the world marketplace, and folks understand that. And so I'm running for Congress, and I'm going to drive some change with the people's help that has not been driven before. And I would argue that John Boehner, or the other side on the Democrat side has had the courage to stand up for.
You know, Governor Palin has always talked about what an exceptional country we have here and how President Obama seems to miss the boat on that. I wonder if he thinks we're more exceptional than Cyprus. That would be a good question to ask when you're on the floor. Now, you're a values guy, too, pro-life. You have a beautiful family. Why are traditional American values so vital to our future?
Yeah, it's interesting. The family really is part of the moral fiber of this country. I appreciate life so much. There were 2D ultrasounds when my boys, Jill and I, had our boys. Now there's 3D ultrasounds. You know, it's really hard to not say that's a baby in there from conception. So I appreciate life all the way through, from conception all the way through till we leave this earth. But we need to respect life, and we need to respect the American family as a traditional marriage. Now, if folks choose to live their lives independently and differently, you know, that's one thing, and that's their choice. That's what makes America great. But for a very small percentage of the folks to try and impose their beliefs on the entire country, I believe is wrong, and it just disregards and disrespects what the nation was built on.
Now, you brought up your boys. Speaking of kids, how about this Common Core deal? It's bad all around, isn't it, for not only students, but for parents and for teachers?
Yes, you know, if you look at Balkema for Congress on our Facebook page, Balkema.org is my web page, but Balkema for Congress on the Facebook page. Actually, I think we've got it on the web page as well. We did a Common Core forum about 3 weeks ago. I believe it was February 18th, maybe almost 4 weeks ago. And there's an hour-long explanation on there, and a lady named Erin did a very good job. Again, 15,000 school districts across the country, one agenda that Arnie Duncan, my fellow Chicagoan that's here, you know, from here, trying to impose on the nation. It is, again, a one-size-fits-all type of socialistic plan that not only degrades and lowers scores and the ability for students to perform, it removes the local control and takes away local school boards, parents, and teachers, the very people that know their students best, and usurps that authority in a way that is just absolutely counterproductive. And the worst part about it is the legislative branch really didn't even get to vote on it. It was another executive order that's come through, and we need to rise up and we need to stop it.
He is Chris Balkema, running in Illinois in the 11th District for Congress, primary coming up on Tuesday. You mentioned it one more time, so your website, so people can check you out further.
Yes, it's a Dutch name. Balkema, BALKEMA.org is the website, and then Balkema for Congress is the Facebook page. Again, my cell phone number is out there. Anybody has questions, suggestions, complaints, I'm all ears. I really appreciate the interaction, and I appreciate you having me on here.
Well, we appreciate you being here. And listen, any chance you could politely nudge the Bears to bring in Tim Tebow?
You know, I've had several requests about that very subject on the campaign trail in the last couple of weeks.
All right, you get elected, you, me, and Tressman will do a three-way call, and we'll talk about this.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Kevin.
God bless you, sir. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
For more on the campaign, visit Balkema.org. That's Balkema, BALKEMA.org. This past week, Governor Palin announced she would start endorsing candidates. She wrote on her Facebook page, "We the people, are you ready to send our congressional patriots their needed reinforcements?" She added, "I'm excited to announce that big U.S. Senate and House of Representatives endorsements are on the way." Then just hours later, they started to roll in. First, T.W. Shannon in Oklahoma. Palin is backing his bid for U.S. Senate, saying the 6'5" Shannon is big enough to fill the conservative shoes of retiring Tom Coburn. Shannon is the first Republican to ever win his district seat in the Oklahoma State Legislature, and he was the youngest speaker in Oklahoma history. On our next edition of the Palin Update, T.W. Shannon will be our guest. You can learn more about him at twshannon.com. Next up, Ben Sasse. Palin endorsed his run for U.S. Senate in Nebraska. Sasse is known as Nebraska's Obamacare nemesis. He took over as president of Midland University when the school was on the verge of bankruptcy and guided Midland to become the fastest-growing school in the Midwest. To learn more, visit sassfornebraska.com. That's sass, SASSEFOR, Nebraska.com. Palin's next endorsement went to Chris McDaniel for U.S. Senate out of Mississippi. McDaniel has an impeccable conservative record. As a state senator, he's fought for limited government, free enterprise, civic participation, reduced tax rates, a strong national defense, and a return to the original checks and balances of the Constitution. His website is McDaniel2014.com. 3 family men, 3 defenders of the Constitution, all Palin-powered. More endorsements to come, a very exciting time. And remember, on our next show, T.W. Shannon will join us. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page. And also follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Hey, Susan, how are you?
Kevin, I'm doing great. Nice to be here.
Well, a big week here this past week. Sarah Palin, she prefaced her endorsements by saying the endorsements are coming, and boy, did they. Fast and furious right after that, a few in a row, a quicker pace than we've seen in years past. So she's really putting a premium on cleaning up Washington this time.
I thought that her speech at CPAC really had a theme of there is opportunity in front of us, so we do have hope. There is something that we can do about the cronyism of the political consultants and those who are elected into office who just get too comfortable and want to be in office and not do what they said they would do. So I thought that her speech, she just did such a funny job of really taking the whole Dr. Seuss, I do not like his healthcare scam, just a good way of adding some humor to something that's really not that funny of what's happening in America. So I loved her Facebook post. I loved her statement that she has put a lot of research and homework into these endorsements that she's giving, but she's also not taking it lightly. She is doing it with seriousness. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point, and it was great to see you at CPAC and enjoy that speech with you. She comes out here and says these things, talking the green eggs and ham and putting some humor into everything, but very serious issues. And then she backs it up by endorsing candidates, maybe that aren't that well known, some of them, different walks of life, just like last time around. I mean, T.W. Shannon here, a guy who is not in front in the polls right now, but here's Sarah Palin looking to give him that boost because she feels he's the best. Meantime, in the Nebraska race, she's looking at somebody who's been known as a guy who's, been an arch rival of Obamacare, if you will. So that's always a good thing. So, she's really doing her homework before making these endorsements. And I just spoke about this the other day with someone. A Palin endorsement is like no other. I mean, if someone else endorses someone, no one even knows or cares, but hers really, really carries weight.
The one thing I appreciated about what she said in her statement as the endorsements were about to roll out was she was not jumping into any race that she had not already been invited, to jump in. So each person that she has endorsed is someone that has signaled that they welcome her endorsement. And I think that, here we are. 2008 is when she really jumped onto the national scene, and fast forward to 2014, and boy, is she relevant. And no matter what your opinion is of the stances that she takes on the issues, she does have courage. She is not intimidated by the naysayers, and she's very principled in how she really sticks to the issues and sticks to the truth of what she's been saying since 2008.
Absolutely, and looking forward as more endorsements roll in. Thanks so much, Susan.
Thanks, Kevin.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. That old adage about how actions speak louder than words definitely applies to Senator Rand Paul. We need more senators like him. He is a very able communicator, but more importantly, he backs up his words with actions. His latest action is the Constitutional Check and Balance Act. This legislation authorizes standing for the United States Congress. In other words, when a president oversteps the law or doesn't follow the law, Congress can bring a cause of action against him. I think we need this kind of action to rein in Obama. Paul has taken a courageous stand defending our Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful search and seizures by the actions of this administration through the NSA. He didn't just speak beautiful words defending the protections afforded us in the Constitution. He is suing the president. Many of us believe that the laws Congress passes should also apply to the members of Congress. They should not be able to exempt themselves from any law. Neither should the president or any official of the government. Rand Paul heard the voice of the people and took action. He has proposed an amendment to the Constitution that applies all laws equally to the citizens of the United States and the federal government. As I like to tell my three boys, no stewing, just doing. Senator Rand Paul is a doer. We need more like him in the United States Senate. This is Sarah Steelman for SarahNet Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. Just head to SarahNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. Visit SarahNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow along on Twitter at SarahNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. Palin Patriots is our feature on SarahNet.net. Check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller and Bader Carmoot. I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at SarahNet Radio. Thanks to Chris Balkema, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.